Welcome everyone who is joining us today on the other side of the screen. How are you? My name is Diana Budko. You may have seen me on the red carpet at San Diego Short Film Festival, and I am so looking forward to our today's virtual conversation. I'm joined today by James Kirby, festival director and president of the board for San Diego Short Film Festival. And of course, we're here with the brilliant mind behind the short film Alyse, who, in true indie film fashion, probably wore far more hats than his title suggests. Welcome, Milo Smith.
Hello.
Milo, how are you doing today? It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm doing very well today. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. James, how are you?
I am outstanding. I always, my favorite thing in the world is to showcase a amateur student or just starting out filmmaker. And Alyse is Milo's first film, I believe. So I'm very, very excited to have an opportunity to talk to him about his opus and what he has next. So I'm feeling good.
Ah, that's wonderful to hear. Well, I'm doing good too, and I'm really, really looking forward to be sharing this space with you all. So thank you so much. Before we dive into the craft, for those who haven't seen the short film Alyse yet, can you tell us what Alyse is about, Milo, please?
So Alyse is about that moment that a lot of us arrive at when we have to decide whether we're going to keep doing that which we love or whether we need to go do something else. And Alyse finds herself at a breaking point where she has to decide, do I keep doing this or do I go do something where people appreciate what I'm doing?
Hmm. And where did the story first came from? Perhaps, I guess, what was the personal spark for you, that moment you knew that you want to tell this specific story?
Well, this story actually was written by someone else. And so when I was working with Lynn, who's my AD and really good friend, about what project we were going to do in 2025, I was reading through scripts and I ran across this particular script. And it's really kind of personal to me because I love making films. And
Yeah.
at some point, you want to share what you love with someone else. And so as I read through that script, I found myself asking the same question that Alyse was asking. And so it
Mm.
really spoke to me personally. And that's really why I selected it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. It does really feel, even right now, as you sharing that this story is really, really special to you personally. And I found this story being something that I really can connect and really sit with. So I am also curious about what would you want the audience to, what do you hope the audience will take away from the story?
We talked a lot about that as we were doing pre-production. And really, I have to say it's empathy. Empathy for yourself if you're going through that moment, empathy for someone else. We tend to be very hard on people who have trouble letting go of a dream. And as the audience sees this film, my hope is that they'll be just a little softer on themselves, those they love, those they know.
Hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. I also wanted to ask you, what made you feel that San Diego Short Film Festival was the right home for Alyse?
That's also a good question. Um, San Diego Short Film Festival has a very good reputation in in the area. So I'm actually a Denver-based filmmaker, but I grew up in San Diego. So I love San Diego. It's my home. It will always be my home. And it's where all of our actors and where Lynn lives. And so it was just a wonderful place to do this. And we got an amazing venue that we got to do this in, and San Diego it was just the right place.
So you were shooting in San Diego.
Yes, yes.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I think I want to bring James into our conversation right now as well, because I know he has some great questions in regards to the creative process behind Alyse.
Thanks, Diana. Yeah, oh, I'm chopping at the bit, right? I hear people talking about movies and I cannot wait to chime in. Um, so, so Milo, you made a beautiful film. Kudos to you. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to showcase it here in our quarterly qualifier, and we haven't tallied the fan favorite audience choice awards yet, but which we love because it gives the viewership an opportunity to be heard and really chime in on what they like. 'Cause you know how it is. The audience and the judges don't always love, like, appreciate the same stuff. So moving forward to our in-person annual festival will really be up to the judges. But we'll tabulate that. And so I was very pleased that we had an opportunity to showcase the film, and I'm really pleased to dive right in and chat with you about it. So in a 6-minute movie, there is no time to waste, and so I look at every frame, I look at every word that I hear, assuming that I've heard every word, and I know what my interpretations or questions are. And so I love getting behind what the filmmaker's notion is and whether or not your thoughts jived with the thoughts of the actor, who I believe is Emi Austin in this case, as the title character, and the screenwriter's thoughts, because we don't always agree and we don't always see the same thing. And I'm fond of saying what you see and what I see and what Emi sees may not be the same thing, but we are all right in our own interpretation of the art. And so I will go right in with the ending. And I'm sorry, with these kind of conversations, they tend to bring with them a modicum of spoilers, because I want to get into everything from the beginning, the rising action, the conflict, the falling action, and the conclusion, in a 3-act story. So we meet the character and she's already somber, and it plays like a poem, and we get that omniscient voiceover, but then learn that the voiceover is coming from the character who already seems to have art, and she doesn't seem to be happy about it. So I'll stop my analysis there and throw it back over to you. About, you would mention the selection of the script and wanting to tell that story, that sounded to you very much like an every person story, and the audience can relate to it. How did you and the screenwriter parse out the vision for the story and the character, and then bring in Emi's perspective? I'll allow you to speak for both yourself and those 2 other people. Over to you.
Well, unfortunately, I did not get a chance to do that analysis with the screenwriter because I didn't actually get to meet the screenwriter. We've kind of corresponded a little bit. This piece was written several years ago by her, and she has since moved on to other projects. So we kind of picked up something that she had thrown over her shoulder a while ago. And so, when we picked it up, Lynn and I spent a lot of time doing that analysis, going back and forth. What is this story about? And so, we kind of bounced different things back, but we always seem to come back to this point of, what are we going to do now? Right. So, we had lots of questions. Alyse, for example, did she quit?
Mm.
And that was a question that we went back and forth on, and we said, you know what, we don't want to answer that question. Did she, the whole question about the costume, did she bring the costume back? That's a question we leave unopened, we leave unanswered on purpose. And and that's by design, really, because we want the audience to get in there and start talking about those questions. What do they think? What would they have done? What are the hints that we left for what she may have done or may not have done? And it's just a short film. There wasn't a lot to work with, but what we wanted the audience to leave with is some of those questions unanswered so they could answer it in their conversations with each other.
So how much of what we saw was actually in the screenplay? How many notes and directions were there indicating what the screenwriter had intended? And then how much of Austin, I think that, yeah, Emi Austin, how much of that performance was hers? Because speaking of the end, she has been, I will say, unfriendly throughout the piece. Most of the interaction, other people are less friendly to her, but the character that she interacts with at the end when she's departing in the stage costume is one who's reached out to her as a friend, and her language is, "We're friends, aren't we?" But her delivery is almost sarcastic, to where when the audience member, myself, takes into account the voiceover and what I know the inner struggle for the character to be, it doesn't jibe with her words and her delivery. So how much of that sarcasm came from you as the filmmaker, and how much of it came from Emi, or did you just let her go and take multiple takes and win with the best one?
I would love to be able to take credit for this, but this is what I loved about working with Emi. That was all her. The conversation as it was laid out was done in the script, and that was word for word from the script, but she made it her own. She owned that character. And from the first day we looked at dailies, that has always been our favorite scene, is that conversation she's having outside the theater. It just worked so well. The two of them just kind of played off each other, and it really was. That was all Emi's doing. She put that together very well, and we just loved what she did with the character there.
Yeah, I concur with you, and that's, in my opinion, at least, the beauty of acting, and the collaborative process. I think between the actor and the director and whoever is in on capturing that on film, because the language, right? If you're reading that, it says, "I promise, we're friends, I'll bring it back." If you're watching it, you don't get that at all. You get, she's lying, she's being sarcastic. The other actor she's playing off of, you can read her face, and she's like, "I'm gonna believe you, but I know you're never coming back, and I'm gonna get in trouble for letting you leave with that polka dot dress." And it's just wonderful. So I'll springboard off of that into more of the message of empathy that you said earlier. You're wanting the audience to take away from the story. We have less than 6 minutes to get to know this character, whose final words are, paraphrasing, "This cold city has made me so cold that I have fractured into something I don't even recognize." And all we really have to juxtapose that against are her flashbacks to sort of dancing in a field, which is evocative of The Catcher in the Rye, classic American literature, not film, but classic American story about a person who just can't handle the weight of the world, and fractures and winds up in an institution. More spoilers to anybody who hasn't read The Catcher in the Rye. But hey, you ain't read that by now. That's on you. That ain't on me. We're not talking about Rosebud. We're talking about a book. So anyway, we only have the 6 minutes. And so we see those flashbacks of a warm and welcoming day in the character's experience. And then we only see her outside of the theater in the cold. She describes it as such. It looks cold herself. So what was your vision, giving us only 20 seconds of what she thinks her life should be or would have been, as she goes off into the cold as a character that she herself does not recognize.
So the idea is the arc, right? The arc of Emi. We didn't want her, or not Emi, I'm sorry, Alyse. We didn't want to paint Alyse as this horrible person because she's not. I didn't want the audience to feel she needs to be likable. You need to be able to relate to her. And I guess you might call a villain is only a villain because of their relationship to the hero, because we're all heroes in our own story, right? So here's Alyse. She has gone through this experience, and we wanted the audience to understand where she came from. She wasn't always like this. And she is now in a place that she did not intend to go, right? Somewhere along the way, she made a turn and it took her down this path to a place that she just doesn't want to be anymore. And it happens to a lot of us, right? We make a decision, we're like, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this. And off we go. And we get into it maybe a little bit more, a little bit more. And then eventually we're so far into it, we can't go back. And it just keeps taking us down into this darker and darker and darker and darker place. And we got to decide. At this point, Emi is like, I got to get out of here. And that's what we see. We see her making that decision. And I love what Emi decided. I keep saying Emi, I mean Alyse. Alyse makes these two people, they're just like fused together in my brain. So we see Emi's beautiful acting, because that last scene we shot several times as she's walking past the camera, and she walks past. This was her idea. This was one last take. I got an idea. Okay. So she comes up and she pauses just for that minute, and then she cracks just the tiniest bit of a smile and walks away. And when I saw that, I'm like, now that's brilliant, because now we know Alyse, she has made a decision, and that decision is bringing her some joy, and she's now back on a path toward where she came from, which is toward happiness instead of unhappiness.
Let me shift gears for a minute and talk to you a bit about the production design, which worked really, really well for me. It's a beautifully shot film. And again, I don't know if it's in the script. It's having read screenplays, it's probably not at all. I'm sure the script just said they're backstage, actors talking backstage. But the choice to put them in a nostalgic garb, we have no idea what show that they're in, or their roles in the particular show, other than you see these three actors who fundamentally are not getting along. One is sullen, one is, grouchy, and one is trying to be peacemaker. But the costume, hair, and makeup is straight out of 1940. It's a very nostalgic look, which I felt was very effective. And I'm biased because I happen to like the look of the 40s. But because it immediately softened the character and made her, it lent to the sense that she is longing for the past, without the audience having to reach for it, without it being written into the script, without you having to change the script, without anyone having to say it. It's visually evocative. And I don't know if I brought that to the piece, which is why I love art, right? What you intend may not be what I see. What I see may not be what you intend, but it really worked for me. And Diana can say if it worked for her or not. But talk to me for a minute about the production design and trying to convey that sympathy for a character who doesn't have a whole lot of sympathetic dialogue, because it worked.
So the again, that was something that was missing from the script. We had to decide where this goes. And so as I was sitting down with Renee, who was our DP, and again, we go back to Lynn, um, and we were talking about where is this? What we wanted is something that felt timeless. Um, we talked about modern dance, but that didn't kind of really fit what we were feeling. And so we kind of came up with this kind of a 20s period piece because it could be in that time frame, or it could be modern day, doing a film, doing a show set in the 20s. Um, we liked the way it played and how it would just kind of just we just wanted a timeless kind of feel to it, and and also have just kind of a class, make it feel classy as well. So that's where we came up with that, how we ended up with that decision with the that particular set design and the costumes. And we had some great hair and makeup people who were there
Yeah.
with us to help us with that as well.
Yeah, it really worked for me. And I would agree with you. I think you nailed it if your intent was out of time. Um, because they, like I said, they look like, she's leaving the theater to go on the swing shift to work to build bombers to fight the Nazis, right? It could totally have been set there. We don't know if it's contemporary dress or not, but in the moment she's out at the stage door trying to go home and away, and her colleague is trying to talk her out of it. I don't exactly remember, but it's like she's wearing a Grateful Dead shirt, so it could be set in 1974. It's just one of those things where it's out of time. And as an audience member, I respect that, and I think it creates a nostalgic feel. And is it set in 2025, or is it set in 1975, or is it set in 1935, is immaterial to the humanity of the characters that are going on. She's got a bad boss, she's got a bad coworker, she's got a coworker who's trying to befriend her, and she doesn't know if she wants to do that or it's just too late for her, not until the end when she's like, full speed ahead, I gotta go. I don't know if I'm bringing this dress back, but I am seeking, the rye field again where I can spin around in the sun. It worked for me. So kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah, that
So
makes
Can
me
I
happy.
join?
I'm so glad.
Um,
I'm so glad. That is our goal. That's why I like talking about this stuff. I want to see where you're coming from, and I want to support and bolster the artist. So that's music to my ears. I'm so glad. Diana, you were saying.
Yeah, as we're talking about timeless of this piece, something that also stood out to me in the way you depicted the story is how to me, it felt like you were blending in and bringing in the external world and Alyse's more internal world by depicting those differences when she's in the sun, and then also was the coloring of the film. So, I was wondering about this blending process of these two worlds for you as a director. What was your approach to that? And were there any challenges? Or what was your thought process like? Whether you were thinking at all about the existence of those two worlds, or was it just my interpretation that something brought up? Um,
That's again, great questions. I have to be honest, I wasn't thinking a lot about how the nostalgic feel of the piece and the costumes and everything kind of point back to a a time before where Alyse was happy. Um, um, but now that you mention it, I can kind of see that connection. It wasn't intentional. Um,
hmm.
yeah.
I think let me ask you that question, perhaps. Now that you have completed the project, are there any lessons that or discoveries that you're now finding looking back at the film, or are there any thoughts that comes to your mind as you look back at the project, or some lessons that you are learning right now?
Um, it was great fun. That's the when we set to when we started on this project, we our goal was to enjoy ourselves and have some fun.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed myself immensely. And what I learned more than anything is to trust your team. Um, I had a great DP. We had great actors. They brought so much to the project that I could not have provided on my own. So, just bringing talented people together and then kind of getting out of the way and just
Mhm.
watching what happens. And it was a beautiful thing to be part of. And you know, and then it goes out into the world and people see it and some people get it, some people don't. Some people get things out of it that you didn't see. I mean me, I didn't see. And so it's what I'm learning is this is great. This is absolutely fabulous. And um, putting my work out in front of people is something I want to keep doing. So that's what I'd say what I learned the most about and what I'm learning now is just one, trust it, not just the people, but trust your audience. Trust your audience.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's very beautiful to see that sometimes, the film can be more of a drama, or sometimes films can be pretty heavy, but then it reminds you, if the filmmaker is watching, or um, if somebody who is into the filmmaking process, it's kind of you bring that reminder that it doesn't necessarily have to, the atmosphere of and the crew, it doesn't have to be all heavy on set. You can bring light, and you can really bring joy into the filmmaking process, and perhaps it might even make the film better.
Yeah.
So
I
thank you for sharing that. James, do you have anything to
Well, so
add?
we just have a few minutes left, although I could talk about it all day. So, Milo, what is next for you? What do you have in the future? My notes reflect that this was, first time filmmaker effort. Although I find that is a bit of a misnomer because invariably first time filmmakers just means it's your first time either directing or producing when you've really done it all multiple times before. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there unless I guess you're just a straight student. So what's next for you?
So what's next for me? So I actually wrote a short film called The Table, and I'm going to be working with Lynn again. He's going to be acting this time, and so that's this year's project. I'm also working on a documentary called Solo, which is going to be an interview of a pilot student, and really kind of exploring what happens to someone after that first experience in an airplane where they're by themselves, and what happens to you, what happens to your personality, what happens to your beliefs about yourself, um, once that event occurs. So those are the two projects that I have slated for this year. And then I've got some other stuff that I'm working on in the background, um, that I'm looking forward to working on over the next couple of years.
What genre is The Table?
The Table, it's a short film, it's a drama. I say it's about um, a relationship gone right.
Mm.
I'm interested to see what the conflict is in a relationship gone right. So things to look forward to. And Solo sounds fascinating. I was going to make a joke about when you said that. I'm like, documentary, please God, tell me it's Harrison Ford. Um, but the way you describe it, that's the beauty of film. I'm hooked because I want to see how that story unfolds in documentary form, and I'm similarly intrigued to see where is the conflict in a relationship gone right. Milo Smith, it's been a delight getting to chat with you about Alyse and your future projects and the collaborative effort of filmmaking. It's just been wonderful, and I appreciate your time. Diana, take us out.
Milo, thank you so much as well for joining us today. And it's been truly, truly a pleasure to talk to you and meet you not in person, in virtual reality. But hearing the behind the scenes process of Alyse, it's been truly a pleasure and wonderful. So thank you so much for this. James, thank you as well for joining us. I really, really value the fact that all three of us were able to be here. Len is here in spirit. Hopefully, we will see him shortly. We'll see him sometime soon. I wish you guys all the best and have a beautiful day. And thank you for every single audience member who is watching us today for joining us as well for this conversation. Thank you.
James, Diana, thank you.
Thank you.